As Trump heads back to the White House, he's probably already got back to the White House by now. It's worth looking briefly at the First Lady and her impact on the coverage, the Scouts' engagement with the Princess of Wales, the hat. Fashion is never neutral in statecraft. The First Lady's wide-brimmed plum hat at Windsor functioned as armour. It cast the face in shadow, controlled the gaze, and signalled distance. This choice echoed earlier moments when she's used millinery or sunglasses to manage exposure. In contrast, Queen Camilla's lighter upturned hat invited eye contact and warmth. Two hats, two messages, self-containment versus hospitality. Both were effective within their roles. The visual grammar mattered because the visit's opening images fixed the frame through which the rest of the trip was seen. Before a word was said at Chequers, the hat had set a tone. And the canary yellow Carolina Herrera gown with the pastel pink belt at the state banquet did the opposite job. After a day of neutrals, this was high visibility at the apex of the ceremony. British white tie dinners are conservative in expectation, and bare shoulders push the edge of that convention, even if rules are unwritten. You can dislike the frock and still respect the play. It pulled attention from a crowded room of royals, ministers and tech titans. In a media market that rewards standout visuals, the First Lady ensured that Day 2's front pages would carry her image alongside the speeches about the special relationship. Queen Mary's doll's house is not a toy, it's a compressed national narrative built by the best artisans in the 1920s, complete with plumbing, wine cellar, scores and tiny books by serious authors. By placing the First Lady with Queen Camilla in that space, the palace framed the visit inside craft, continuity and literacy. It told a quiet story about British identity that travels well, care for detail, respect for collections, and the idea that the Crown curates culture for the next generation. The children making miniature books beside them strengthened the message. This wasn't nostalgia, it was heritage used to point forward. And much of the public commentary fixated on the First Lady's wardrobe, but the operational success actually belonged to Camilla. She carried the Windsor programme with professional ease, drawing out responses in the library, keeping the tone light among school children, giving the camera something human that was not saccharine. This is what court service looks like when it works. She made the First Lady comfortable, guarded the institution's dignity, and delivered pictures that editors could run on page one without controversy. In doing so, she cushioned the politics that followed. The Princess of Wales brought the visit down to earth with squirrel scouts in Frogmore Gardens, leaf stamping, bug houses, go wild badges that hardly are hardly diplomatic fireworks, yet the images achieved three aims. First, they recentered the day on children, health and nature, which are Catherine's core beliefs, and second, they softened the visit's harder edges on protests and press questions. Third, they created a shared platform for British and American civic life, and the presence of Chief Scout Dwayne Fields added heft. For the 4- and 5-year-old present, this will be a forever memory. For the rest of us, it reminded viewers that public life is not only podiums and motorcades. So, why did the First Lady drive so much of the British coverage? I think there are three reasons. She makes relatively few public appearances, so each one carries novelty because it's scarce. And pair that with the contrast between the Windsor silhouettes and the Chequers trench or camel suit, and you have an easy narrative for picture editors. The leaders were careful to, in the press coverage on the Palestine recognition, Gaza, Ukraine, and the Epstein question, the lines were managed, and that restraint pushes the media back towards simple imagery. When policy produces minimal friction, the visuals take the lead. And the palace offered two high-value stages, the St George's Chapel and Frogmore, and of course St George's Hall and the and the banquet, all catnip for broadcasters, put the First Lady into spaces with Queen Camilla and Catherine, and the coverage will naturally tilt that way when there's nothing more available. It's not a slight to the trade and tech announcements to note that a yellow dress and a hat will reach more eyeballs than a paragraph on digital services taxes. The Windsor pictures didn't just flatter, they created the conditions for a smoother checkers. By the time the leaders faced questions on free speech, Mandelson, Gaza and Ukraine, the public tone had been set as cordial. And that matters. If you want a disagreement to land as respectful rather than rancorous, you surround it with rituals of respect, and Melania supplied those rituals. The First Lady's participation amplified the softer message. There was chatter about protocol breaches and taste. 2 quick points. The sovereign set the tempo. If the king guides a guest forward on the lawn or accepts a hand on the back, that is the protocol. The fuss by the press and by etiquette experts is simply theatrical. And some saw the banquet dress as daring, others saw it as discordant. Either way, it kept the visit on the lifestyle pages without infecting the policy pages with scandal. And that's a win for both Downing Street and the palace, and indeed the White House. It's worth marking how well the Queen and the Princess of Wales divide and conquer. Camilla is at ease with cabinets, curators and bookish settings. Catherine excels in outdoor youth programmes and health initiatives. Together, they can host a First Lady across cultural and child centres, pillars without strain, and that twin track maximises the reputational dividend of a compressed state visit. For the UK government, a working relationship was reinforced, a press conference without explosions, and a tech investment headline that outlived the motorcade. The ceremonial optics helped secure the space, and those optics were dominated by the First Lady. For the palace, this was institutionally flawless. The Crown projected continuity, culture and community. The Doll's House and the Scouts were not cute extras, they were the spine of the presentation. For the First Lady, the mission was accomplished. Control the frame at arrival with a hat, own the banquet with some colour, recalibrate with heritage neutrals beside the Queen, close with a child-centred event beside the Princess of Wales. The media duly followed. I was quietly impressed by the First Lady and by the tone of the entire visit. I thought it was a very professionally managed event that could have been disastrous. It was not disastrous by any means.